Today we're going to work to understand dependent and independent variables. So variables are just those letters that we use that represent numbers. We just don't know what their value is yet, so we represent them by using a letter instead. So when we go ahead and work with independent variables and dependent variables, there's going to be two letters involved, and one is going to affect the other. So let's look at how that looks. So if we go to the store and we buy a bunch of things, the total cost, C, is affected by the number of items we buy. Let's just assume right now that we buy the same exact thing. If I buy more of the item, it's going to cost more in total cost. So that's how those two things relate to each other. Now, the number of items is what's called the independent variable, because that's the thing that affects the total cost, which is the dependent variable. So if we look at the length of a story in pages, represented by P, and the number of words in a story, represented by W, what are we going to look at? We're going to look and see which one affects the other one. So I'm trying to figure out which one is the independent variable and which one's the dependent variable. So which one affects the other? In this case here, the number of pages you have affects the amount of words you have. So that's the way this works. So P is going to be the independent variable, and W is going to be the dependent variable, because the amount of words is determined by the amount of pages. So once again in this problem, we're trying to identify the dependent and independent variable. So in this case here, the amount of time, T, to finish a race, and the number of laps, L, around a track. So which one is affected by the other one? Well, in this case here, the amount of time is affected by the number of laps that you have to run. If you have to run more laps, then it's going to take more time. So L is going to be your independent variable, and T is going to be your dependent variable, because it depends on what L is. So here again, we're just looking for the independent and the dependent variable. So which one affects the other one? So in this case here, tickets, T, sold for a concert, and the amount of money, M, collected. So which one affects the other? So in this case here, the amount of tickets sold is the independent variable, because M, the amount of money taken in, is affected by the amount of tickets sold. So M depends upon T. So one last one here, identifying independent and dependent variables. So the number of hours, H, spent studying for a test, and the score, S, on the test. So which one affects the other? So the number of hours is going to affect the score. So the score is actually going to be the dependent variable, because it depends on the amount of hours studied. So H is going to be the independent variable, and S is going to be the dependent variable.